Alright, so today we're going to go over factoring with a GCF. GCF, if you don't know what that stands for, the G stands for greatest, the C stands for common, and the F stands for factor. And whenever you study factoring, and we're going to talk about what factoring is in just a moment, whenever you study factoring, when you read it in a math book for fun, or when you read it in a professional book because you want to learn more about math, whenever you study factoring, what always happens is that you always learn there's a couple steps to factoring, there's a couple different strategies, but the first strategy you always learn is a thing called a GCF. Okay, so before we get into what a GCF is, how do we factor, we first should probably go over the question of what is factoring. Okay, you're going to hear me say that a lot, Riley Alexander, and you're going to be asking yourself, what is factoring? Okay, no, Lane, factoring is not something that happens on Nabu or anything like that. Factoring is a mathematical concept in which you're going to be trying to figure out what is two terms that multiply to make a given term. So what is factoring? It is trying to find, and I should just say finding, not trying to find. So let's go ahead and get rid of that trying to, because I hate that word, trying. It is finding two terms that multiply to make a given term. To make a given term. Okay? You guys, and we're going to go over just a simple thing of what it means to factor, but that right there is the concept of factoring. Okay? So, let's say I give you the number 10, and I say factor it. Well, how do you factor 10? Well, you could say 1 times 10 is equal to 10, or you could say 2 times 5 is equal to 10. Okay? Notice, you guys, I just found two terms that multiply to make a given term. So this would be factoring. Okay? So 1 times 10 is factoring 10. 2 times 5 is factoring 10. Okay, so let's say that I made it a little bit more wild and crazy, and I threw in something like, Justice, what would you like? An X. Good, Justice. That's very good. We typically use X. I was going to throw in a variable. Justice read my mind. Okay, why did you read my mind, Ethan? That's right, because she has ESPN, and when you have ESPN, you could read people's minds. So let's say I said factor 10x. In other words, I'm asking you, find two terms that multiply to make 10x. Nevada, what do you think? I like that answer. Nevada said 5x times 2. Isabella, sitting right next to Nevada, said, yeah, but I like 2x times 5. You're both right. Those would be considered factors of 10. Okay? And there's even more if you think about it. Can anybody think of any other factors of Keith Dunlop? Excellent, Keith. Yes, 10x times 1, or as Kinley just said, I don't know if you heard her, but Hope is back there shaking her head, x times 10. All of these, you guys, would be considered factoring 10x, okay? So, hopefully you get the idea of what the idea of factoring is. Simply means we're trying to find two terms that multiply to make a given term, okay? Now, this 10x stuff, we're not going to deal with that. That stuff is way too elementary for us. Okay, we're going to be factoring polynomials. Okay, so what we're doing is we're not going to be factoring just, and 10 is a polynomial, but we're going to be factoring using a GCF. Okay, or factoring with a GCF, like the title of our notes say. Once again, if you weren't paying attention because you came in late, Angela, the GCF stands for greatest common factor. Okay, somebody shake Reese right now. I think he passed out. Okay, Reese is awake. Good. All right, so stay with me here. All right, so let's say that the instructions are factor completely. And pay attention to this, and you probably want to write this down. You will be taking a quiz on it today in class, okay? So you're going to have to know how to do it. And you're going to have a worksheet. You're going to be tested on it later on and so on. So let's say I give you the binomial. So let's see. Let's think of a binomial. Kaylee, Laura, can you think of a binomial? Good. I like that one. I don't know if you heard what Kaylee said. She said 9x to the second power minus 18x. Okay? All right, so what we're going to do is, in order to factor this problem completely, we're going to use the idea of the greatest common factor. Okay? All right, so the first thing is, I'm going to factor each one of these terms. So what does 9x squared factor down into? All right, it factors into 3 times 3 times, and how do you factor x squared? Well, that's easy. That's xx. All right, so if I were to factor 18, remember 18 is 6 times 3, but 6 is 3 times 2. All right, so that means 18 factors into 3 times 3 times 2. Then how do you factor x? Well, that's easy. That's x. Okay, all right, so remember, so what does the word factor mean? I'm going to factor this. What does it mean? It means find two terms that multiply to make the given term. This is my given term, and I'm going to factor it. So I am going to find two terms, and what you do is you just draw 2 parentheses. Those are going to represent your 2 terms. Okay? Whenever you see the word factor, you automatically are just going to draw 2 parentheses. We're going to find 2 terms. The first term that we're going to find is we're going to find the GCF. Okay? And then the second term is going to be what I'll term as the leftovers. Okay? And the leftovers will be what is left over after we yank out a GCF. So let's find the GCF. What does GCF stand for, Victoria? Greatest common factor. Yes, you are absolutely right. Okay, Nick agrees with you. I like that. I like that you guys are participating today. Yeah, very good. Matea, GCF. Greatest common factor. Okay, so let's look at our factors. Here I have 3 times 3 times x times x. Here I have 3 times 3 times 2 times x. Okay, you will notice the greatest common factor is what is common in each one of the lists. So it has to be stuff, numbers, letters, variables that have to be in each one of my factors lists. Well, so what's in common? Well, they share a 3. They each have a 3. They each have a second 3. They also each have an x. So what's in common is 3 times 3 times x in each one of my terms that I factor. Multiplying those together, I get 9x. So my greatest common factor is 9x. Okay? And that's what you're going to put in the first parentheses when you get a problem that says factor. Then, in the second parentheses, the second term that you're going to multiply in order to get back to the given term is going to be the leftovers. So what's left over here? Well, you can see from this list, I have an x left over. I have a minus sign left over, because right here there's a minus sign, so I have a minus sign left over. And then from this list, I have a 2 left over. 9x times x minus 2, that right there is the factor of 9x squared minus 18x. Why is that the factor? Well, if I multiplied this 9x back out, would I get back to the given term that I had? Absolutely, I would. 9x times x is 9x squared. 9x times negative 2 is negative 18x. That would be the factor for number 1. Okay, let's do another one. Let's do another one that's a binomial, and then we'll do a third one that is a trinomial. Okay, all right, Lily, what do you think? Let's come up with another binomial. Let's keep the numbers small. I don't want anything like 1,024, 2,568, and 723,422. How about this? Let's just go with, I don't know, let's go with 10x to the third power. Plus, I like that, Lily. So Lily, come up with another monomial that's going to make this a binomial so that they're not like terms, but they have the same variable. Yeah, I like that, Lily. Good. 6x. I don't know if you heard her say that. Okay, so but we're going to factor this. So how do you factor? So the instructions, once again, let's say that they say factor completely. Okay, so right now we only know one strategy to factor. We're going to use the GCF, greatest common factor. So whenever you factor something, you immediately draw two parentheses. Anybody can do this. This should be the first step. Okay, you draw two parentheses. Why do I draw two parentheses? Well, the answer is because the word factor means finding two terms that multiply to make a given term. Here's my given term. I have to find two terms that I'm going to multiply. Okay, going inside the first parentheses, the first term is going to be my GCF. And then what I write inside the second parentheses is going to be what we're going to term as our leftovers. Not really a technical term. You won't see that in a math book. Don't look for it. Okay, but that's what we're going to call it. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, we go to our given term, and we're going to just write the factors of it. We're going to take it down to its prime factors. So what is 10? Well, 10 is 5 times 2. Both of those are prime. And then how do you factor x to the third power? Well, that's easy. That's x, x, x. Okay, then we're going to do the same thing for this term. Oh, then I have a plus. And then how do we factor this? Well, 6 becomes 2 times 3 or 3 times 2. Doesn't matter how you write it. And how do you factor x? Well, that's x. Okay, so now to find the greatest common factor, we're going to look at this list. We're going to look at this list, and we're going to figure out what's common. So let's look. What do they have in common? Do they each have a 5? No. Do they each have a 2? Yes. Do they each have an x? Yes. How many? Well, they each have one x in common. That has a 3 in it, but over here there's no 3. So you can see what's in common in each one of my factors lists is 2x. So my GCF is 2x. Okay? And then in the second parentheses, the second grouping symbol, I'm going to write the leftovers. So what's left over? A 5, an x, and an x. I multiply those out, 5x squared. I have a plus, an addition symbol. So I put plus. What's left over from this list? 3. Okay, so what did I just find out, you guys? I just found out that if I take the binomial, the term 10x to the third plus 6x, when I factor it, it's going to become 2x times the quantity 5x to the second plus 3. Notice I didn't write the 2x in parentheses. You really don't need it because it's a monomial. It stands by itself. Is this correct? I don't know. Let me see. If I multiply this back out, would I get the original, the given term? 2 times 5 is 10. X to the first power times x to the second power is x to the third. That works. Multiply it this way. 2x times 3 is 6x. So that would be my factor right there. So that's how we factor. Okay? All right, let's do one more, and then you guys will move on. Okay? So now I'm going to make it a little bit more challenging. Hold on, my lights just went out. So I've got to walk around the classroom. I don't know if you can hear me. All right, so I'm back. Okay? Actually, I walked to the back of the class. I stood right where Prince is sleeping. I woke Prince up. Okay? So Prince. Blake Jones, thank you very much for paying attention. Lily Hodges, thank you. Cody Gilchrist, I'd say thank you, but I don't know if you're here today or not. Okay, all right, so let's do a trinomial. Kaysen, what do you think? Give me a trinomial. What does tri mean, Kaysen? I don't know. Turn to Javen, who's right next to you. Ask him. Good, Javen, you're absolutely correct. Trinomial means we're going to have 3 terms to the problem. Okay, so how about 2x to the 4th power minus 6x to the 2nd power plus 8. Okay, so we're going to factor this. Now, this is a trinomial. 1, 2, 3 different terms separated by addition or a subtraction symbol, subtraction or addition symbol. Okay, so when you're asked to factor, what's the first thing that you do? I've already said it, Katerina. Look at Jordan if you don't know. Jordan, tell her what to do. Yes, you write 2 parentheses. So the very first thing you do when you factor is you set up 2 parentheses. These are going to be the 2 terms that I'm going to multiply together to get this given term. Inside the first parentheses, the first term is going to be my GCF. What I put in my second term is going to be what we're terming as the leftovers. Okay, so I first have to find my GCF. How do I do that? I go to each one of my terms and I write out the prime factors. So 2x to the 4th is, if we wrote that out as prime factors, it's 2 and then x, 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 x minus. If I write out the factors of 6x squared, that would be 3 times 2 and then x, x plus. If I wrote out the factors of 8, 8 is 4 times 2, but 4 is 2 times 2, so that would be 2 times 2 times 2. No x's, there's no variables here. Okay, so now my GCF is what is in common, and it has to be in each of the groups. It can't be in 2 of the 3 groups, it has to be in every single group. So let's look, what's in common? Well, if you notice, they all have a 2. And that's it. There's 4 x's here, there's 3 x's there, there's no x's there. Here we have a couple 2's, but there's no other 2's to be in common. So my GCF here is simply 2. All right? And then in the second grouping symbol, the second parentheses, I write what is left over from each of my terms. So here I have x to the 4th power. Not 4x, it's x to the 4th power. Okay, so I write x to the 4th power. Then I put a minus sign. What's left from here? I have a 3, an x, and an x. I multiply those together. That's 3x to the 2nd power. I put a plus symbol. What's left over from this last group? A 2 times 2. That's 4. Okay, so what is 2x to the 4th minus 6x squared plus 8 factor into, well, it factors into 2 times, and you can put that 2 in parentheses or not in parentheses, it doesn't matter, x to the 4th minus 3x to the 2nd plus 4. Okay, that's what that is factoring into. That would be your answer in factoring right now. Okay, all right, your teacher right now is going to give you a quiz. You guys are going to take the quiz. You're going to work by yourself on the quiz. If there's any talking, the teacher will write your name down. The teacher will not take your quiz away. They're just going to write your name down, and I'll give you a 0 on it if I see your name down, because that means you were talking during the quiz. All right, you're timed. You're going to have 5 minutes to take the entire quiz. Stay quiet for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, your quizzes will be collected, and then you'll be instructed on what to do next. All right? Have a great day. I'll look forward to seeing you guys next time. Peace!